Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be my November wrap-up, which it's about time that I did this because it is literally December 18th. So what took me so long? I don't know. Maybe because I'm a procrastinator. So for the month of November, I read a total of 9 books, starting with Savages. This book just holds every horror trope that I love in the world. It's a slasher. It is set on an island. It is gory, bloody, survival, evil forces, abandoned buildings, scientific experiments. I mean, it was just a total package for me. I ended up giving this book 5 stars. It was a fast-paced read, and it's just one of those things that you're just happy that you read such an amazing book to start your month off. So it just sets the course for the rest of the month. At least for me it does, because you're like, okay, you start off the month with such a fantastic book that you just want to read all the books. I actually buddy read this with a whole crew of the Nightworms reviewers. We did a whole blog post, or the Nightworms posted a whole blog post up on the blog. I will link that down below. That's already been up. But it was just such a great read. Here we follow a group of friends. They have gone on a vacation. I'm trying to evade the sun because it's like creeping up on me. They're a group of friends. They have gone on a vacation to this island, and on one of the days they decide to take, I think it was like a fishing trip. So they go out on this boat, and it's being there's a captain, and they go out to sea, but a storm hits and they are left in the water. Then another storm hits and they've just been thrown off course in the water in rafts, and they pull up to this island, but there is something evil on this island that is killing them off one by one. It's fast-paced. I loved how it was written. I love the whole plot line to it. It was just incredible. Again, I'm gonna leave that blog post where we all do like a little bit of our own reviews and our own views on this book down below, so go ahead and check that out. Next up on the lineup is Fantasticland by Mike Bachman. I enjoyed this book so much. This takes place in Florida in an amusement park. So right off the bat, it was just like, it just grabbed me. I'm from Florida. I love amusement parks. And it was just phenomenal. This story is about a group of workers, the workers from the amusement park. They're sort of left behind in the amusement park as they get slammed by a hurricane. And basically they're left there in this amusement park while in the aftermaths of the hurricane. So they have a plan in place. The owners of Fantasticland have a plan in place, and they have everything set up for them to survive this hurricane. They're left there on purpose, a group of them, and there is just a whole blueprint of everything that has to happen. They have food, everything is covered. And so in the aftermath of the hurricane, when the rescue team is searching around in their helicopters, they see that basically Fantasticland is okay. They're fine. Nothing, they don't see anything out of order or out of whack. So they just go and they save other people. But in reality, what's going on in this amusement park is just crazy. So this is told in a set of interviews by the members that were left alive, that survived this tragic event. It was great. It was captivating, and I will say I gave this 5 stars, but I didn't give this 5 stars because it's such a perfect book. I gave this 5 stars because I really bonded with this book, living through hurricanes and living in Florida and the weather and amusement parks. I just bonded with the book in that way. But there are some flaws to it. I feel like sometimes it was all over the place and it didn't give enough depth within the story. I wanted to know more, and I wanted it to be a little bit gorier. But overall, it was a great story. I did listen to this on audiobook, so I think that made my experience, it enhanced my experience a little bit more because it does have a full cast, or I don't know if it's a full cast or like 2 or 3 narrators, and the way they changed their voices throughout for each character was just great. So I think that that made my experience a little better. But I do wish that there would have been something else behind the reasoning of all the killings and that was going on in Fantastic Land. But other than that, I enjoyed it. Like I said, I did give this 5 stars. The next book that I read for the month of November, I actually buddy read with, again, with the crew of the Nightworms reviewers. We all got together and just did a buddy read of The Possession of Natalie Glasgow. This was a quick little read. It's a little novella, and I quite enjoyed it. Now, I'm going to start off by saying that possession stories or novels just aren't my thing. I don't like to read about possessions. I don't like, they don't do anything for me, and I just don't like them. But I decided to just, since it was such a short novel, I forget how many pages it was, but it was really short. I mean, I read it in like, I don't know, an hour or 2. But being the topic that it was, I quite enjoyed it. It was a little weird towards the end, and a little bit out there, but and I don't want to spoil it for anybody because number 1, it's so short, and number 2, it's so bizarre that I just don't want to spoil it. But if you look at the cover of the book, it's sort of a spoiler in itself. Yeah, it's a weird little one, but I enjoyed it. It was quite... It was written well, it was entertaining, and it wasn't too creepy in my opinion. Now, towards the end of the book, there is talk about animal poaching, so that part really hit me, and I think that just, I mean, it made me cry and it really impacted me. So beware of that if you're sensitive to animal cruelty or things like that. There is mention of it. It's really quick, but it is really sad. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. Overall, it was a pretty entertaining, albeit weird, kind of possession story. Making my way to the Dark Tower, I ended up reading book 5, Wolves of the Calla, of the Dark Tower by Stephen King. I loved this one. I loved this one. It was just amazing. Here we're still going on our way to the Dark Tower. Roland is trying to get to that Dark Tower still. There are some happenings. There are some wolves. There's some fighting. I know that in the video prior I said that I didn't know if this one, or what was book number 4? I forgot. That I didn't know if Wolves of the Calla was my favorite, or if Wizard in Glass was my favorite. I think I would have to say Wizard in Glass because I feel like we encountered some of the darker characters in there, and there was a darker storyline. I really loved listening to Roland's past and his storyline through his youth. But Wolves of the Calla was very entertaining. We meet some new characters. We meet this new town. This town that's being attacked by these wolves, and they basically come and take their kids. Some of them die, and so they're trying to come up with an easier way to get through this hard time because they know the wolves are coming. They're just trying to go through this situation, and into the story comes Roland and his gunslingers to save the day. Or do they? I don't know. But I really did enjoy it. There is, my favorite saying in the whole series is here. Somebody is apologizing and they say, "I'm sorry." And Roland goes, "Balls to your sorry." I mean, that has to be the line of time. I just loved it so much. A great book. I ended up giving this one 5 stars. Still staying with Stephen King. The next one I read was Wendys Box. This is a collab between Stephen King and Richard Chismar. I'm hoping I'm saying that one correctly. I know many people don't like this book. I know many people say that this book is boring, that they just didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed it. It was pretty good. I ended up listening to this on audiobook, and it is narrated by the girl, I forget her name, and I forget her character. I think her character name is Tara in Sons of Anarchy. So I really did enjoy listening to her narrate this. Here we're just following Wendy, and she gets approached by this man one day when she is at the park, and he hands her a box, and it's just the story of her with this box and using this box and taking care of this box and everything that happens because of this box. I really enjoyed the story and following Wendy as she took care of this box and just growing into her own character, going through life, caring for this little box. Again, I don't want to say too much because this is a very short little book. But I enjoyed it, and I actually had read this because I did get sent Wendy's Magic Feather, I believe the name of the book is, which I still haven't read. But I'm looking forward to reading that one because I want to see, I don't know if it's, I mean, I imagine it's the same girl in the book, but I want to know where that story goes. I ended up giving this 4 stars. Oh, the next book that I read has my heart, and that is The Making of Gabriel Davenport by Beverly Lee. You guys, this book is all kinds of amazing. I know I usually tend to write in my reviews a lot, obviously when it pertains to the book, how atmospheric a book is, but I think I have found the king of atmosphericness in books. Did not make sense, but you know what I mean. This book is the epitome of atmosphere. This book is so atmospheric from the beginning of the book. The way that this book starts, it just grabs you. So let me read it to you. She dreamed in gray, the color of misery. Yes. Thank you. Let's continue this story. So atmospheric. The characters are just, you just love all the characters, and the storyline is so dark. It's so just gloomy, but in like, it just grabs you. This story starts off with this couple. They have this baby. They've moved into this almost like a cottage farmhouse kind of place. And one day the husband has to go to work, but apparently he works kind of far from where they live, maybe like 30 minutes or so, maybe like an hour away from where they live. And they're supposed to be getting this snowstorm. So he's like, I need to go into the office. I'll be back before the snowstorm happens, and yada yada. So he ends up leaving, but he doesn't make it out of work in time, and he gets stuck there in the snowstorm. Now, meanwhile, at home, everything's going okay until this evil force is let loose in this house, and it's after the baby. The story progresses from there. We follow Gabriel, which is the baby, into his teenage years and what happens with this evil force that's after this kid, trying to get this kid. It follows him into his teens, and as he's growing up, he wants to know more of this incident that happened when he was a baby. So he's looking for answers and trying to find some sort of closing to his childhood, which was very traumatic. Like I said, it was just this. Beverly Lee has a way with words. It is written so beautifully, so dark, like I said earlier, and it's just a must read. I ended up giving this book 5 stars. Next, I read Arusha and the End of Time by Roshni Chakshyano. I cannot say her name, so you know who she is. She is very popular in the YA and middle grade world. This is a Rick Riordan Presents book. This was just a book that I wasn't planning on reading, almost like, what was the book that I read last month? Just like Sky in the Deep last month. This was just a book that I was looking for an audiobook to listen to. I stumbled upon it. I knew I had this in a physical copy, and so I just started listening to it. It was a quick, I mean, I think I listened to this in one day. It was a quick, fun read. Here we follow Arusha, and she lives upstairs of a... She lives in the museum, not in the museum, but on the top floor of the museum that her and her mom, or her mom, works at. and they have like artifacts there, but there is this one artifact, I believe it's a candle or something that can't be lit or the end of the world happens, and she decides to go and light it because she wants to prove to her friends, not really her friends, but she's being bullied by these kids and she wants to prove something to them. And so she ends up lighting it, and she has to go through this whole set of things to stop the end of the world from happening. It was really cute, fast-paced, and I ended up giving this 4 stars. I love middle grade. It's been a while since I read middle grade, besides Harry Potter, but I really don't consider that middle grade. So it's been a while since I had listened to some middle grade, and this just fulfilled that void that was going on in my heart for a good, just fun story. This was so funny as well. Like, I would just start laughing because Arusha is just hilarious. The things that she says are just so funny. So I spent half of the book just laughing out loud. So great little book. Highly recommended if you like middle grade and you want something lighthearted. Sort of lighthearted because she has to battle some gods and stuff. But if you want something that's funny and that's quick to read, I highly recommend this. Then I jumped into some Dracula. I mean, from Arusha and the End of Time to Dracula, I'm gonna start off by saying that I've never read Dracula before. I know that, I mean, why? How can a horror lover not read Dracula? But I just never have. You guys know that I'm a little bit intimidating by books that have been written way back yonder. I find them hard to understand. I find them a bit boring, and I've always been a little bit intimidated by Dracula, so I've just never read it. But after reading this, I really want to read Dracula. And as a matter of fact, I listened to this on audiobook, and I think that's the route that I'm going to take with Dracula as well. This was just incredible. This is basically just a prequel to Dracula, and we follow Bram through his younger years, since when he was a baby and being sick. He was a sickly child and he was being cared for by his nanny, which her name is Ellen Crone. And she cares for him, and miraculously he gets better and gets better and gets better. But he had a condition where they really weren't expecting him to survive, but he ends up surviving. He ends up growing up. And just one day, this nanny just ups and disappears. Nobody's ever known anything from her after that, and him and his sister are just always wondering what happened to this nanny. Well, as the years go on, his sister leaves to Paris to go to school, and one day she thinks she sees her. She comes back home and tells Bram, hey, I think I saw her, and they just go on this quest trying to find this nanny. They come across evil forces, and it's just incredible. This story is told in 2 different timelines. We have him reading, or we're going through his diary of just events that happened with the nanny and growing up and all of that, and then we are in present time when they're looking for Ellen. So very well written, just an amazing story. I really did enjoy it. Of course, it's dark, it's creepy. There's a scene where Bram is just stuck in this tower, in this room by himself, and there's like evil forces outside trying to get him, and it's just so good, so atmospheric and very well written. It's blurbed by Josh Malerman. It's as scary as hell. I mean, it wasn't that scary to me, but it is a very creepy and just wonderful prequel to Dracula. So now I just gotta read Dracula. I ended up giving this 5 stars. And the last book that I read for the month is Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. This is my 2nd or 3rd Neil Gaiman. I know that I read the Coraline graphic novel and The Sandman. I mean, The Sandman is just one of my favorites. Oh, and I've also read The Ocean at the End of the Lane, which I absolutely loved. It's probably one of my favorite books. It was incredible. Come into Neverwhere. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. It was just okay. I know that many people love this book. This is just about a guy that finds himself in the understreets of London, where there is just this whole entire world and all these characters, and It was confusing at times. He basically just disappears from the real world, from his life. He sort of just starts vanishing until just nobody talks to him or listens to him or can hear him. And he's left like, what's going on? Like, am I disappearing? So he ends up going to Lower London. I forget what it's called, Under London. And he comes across this group of people, and he's just trying to go back to his real life. He's trying to go back to the real world, and he doesn't know what's happening, and so he's trying to figure that out with this group of characters that he meets underground. While it was entertaining and it was bizarre and it was weird, just like the Sandman and all his books are just, there's this weird element that Neil Gaiman has that I usually love. In this one, it just didn't captivate me too much. I did listen to this on audiobook, so I don't know if maybe that had something to do with it, while all the other books that I've read of him, I've read in physical form. I've actually read it myself. But this is narrated by Neil Gaiman, so he does bring life to the characters that he's written. He knows the feelings that he wants to put into it with his voice, and he gives it that element that only he knows as he wrote it. But it didn't wow me. I was expecting so much. Maybe I went into this with too high expectations and high hopes because I love Neil Gaiman and he's just so incredible. But this book just, it was okay. It was good. It was good while it lasted, and then I put it down and it was sort of like, okay, done with that. So I ended up giving this 3 stars, and that's what I closed out my month with. So that was it. That was everything that I read for the month of November. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know down below what books you have read and what was your favorite read in the month of November. I always ask you guys the same thing, but like, what else am I supposed to ask you in a wrap up? Like, tell me about the books that you read in November. Give me your wrap up and tell me which one was your favorite book. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!